Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon FireRed. In the last part we took care of business here in Fuchsia City, exploring the Safari Zone and doing the gym. And in between parts I grinded everyone up to around level 36 with the exception of Andrew, who I kept at 25 because it only gave him the move I needed him to have. And I didn't want to go overboard. I used the setup of 5 bikers and cue balls at the top of Route 17 to do that, by the way. That and the Versus Seekers I really need for it. Hi, remember me? I'm one of Professor Oak's aides. If your Pokedex has complete data on 50 species, I'm supposed to give you a reward. Professor Oak entrusted me with the experience share for you. This is a held item that essentially when you get experience points at the end of a Pokemon encounter, the Pokemon who fought get experience points, but whoever's holding that does even if they didn't participate. It's a way to safely turn a Pokemon without having to worry too much. And now we're on Route 13, which starts off with a Pokemon we technically saw last part, but I figured I'd go over again for those that missed it. This is Doduo, normal flying. Weak to electric, electric, rock, and ice. There we go. Very decent attack stat, good speed stat. It's even better when it evolves. Nothing special otherwise. Could be good. I've used one before. Yeah. The big thing is with this whole set of routes we're going through right now. We're heading, I think this is Route 14 right now. We're going to head on to... I know, this is Route 15, then it's 14, 13. Then we're going to find ourselves back near the Fisherman's House on Route 12. We're essentially completing the loop that we've done around Kanto thus far in the game. However, with very few exceptions, most of the trainers on this route are completely optional. So, unless there's a new Pokemon, we're not seeing much here. And even then, there are some fights that are technically required that I still show, but you don't need to do. Because, to be frank... This part was 44 minutes in recording, ended up around 10, so I borrowed some footage from the next part, just so we could have an even, like, 15-ish minutes. Cause, yowza, that's a lot of things to edit out. Either way, this is Wigglytuff. Normal type, week 2 fighting, became a fairy type starting in Gen 6. This is the evolution of Jigglypuff starting at... I know, actually, you just need to use Moonstone for it to evolve. This thing is similar to Vaporeon in that it has an absurdly high HP stat. It's got some decent special and physical attack. It could be good for potential tanky kind of physical or attacker fighter, but not to my interests. I don't like using normal types. If we were in Gen 6 and there was a fairy type, that'd be a different conversation though. Now, there is something I'm not showing off here, and that is the top half of this route, and because you can cut down this tree right here and just head to the left. I think there's like another couple items and even a couple trainers up there. If I do that, I'll do it off screen because frankly, I don't care. The items you can find there, I know you can find Rain Dance up there, which is a TM ability that causes the rain weather condition, which raises the power of water type moves, as well as I believe makes moves like Thunder on 100% accuracy. However, along the way, we did manage to get probably the best thing about this. Andrew reached level 30, I believe level 30 at least, which means it's now evolving into a Dragonair. The specialties of Dragonair, Dratini to Dragonair, don't really change too much. It's still Dragon type, which means it's still weak to Ice Dragon, and that's it. It's got a decent attack stat. Everything else about it's relatively balanced. I'm waiting for its next evolution, which isn't going to be for a while. Because Pokemon has something known as pseudo-legendaries, which are Pokemon whose stats are so good they're considered to be up there with the usually one-of-a-kind Perseiphile legendary mon. The evolution of Dragonair is basically that, but it takes forever to get to. It doesn't evolve until level 55. It's worth the investment, but hot damn, we're waiting a while. We're already onto Route 13, though. And I suppose I should mention, the Pokemon you can find back on Route 15 are Oddish, Bellsprout, Venonat, Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Gloom, Weepinbell, and Ditto. Ditto is a weird Pokemon in that it's more or less mostly nowadays used for breeding. Its specialty is the transform ability, which allows it to transform into the Pokemon in question. But I'll talk more about that later, because we do eventually encounter one, just not in this part. On Route 14... I think it's more or less the same. Yeah, like I'm seeing Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Oddish, Gloom, Venonat, Bellsprout, Weepinbell, Ditto. It's looking like it's the exact same. Here on Route 13, there's, again, basically no required trainers, but I'm showing them... Actually, no, there's one required trainer. But I'm showing off a couple more just so this part isn't 10 minutes long. That's something I don't like doing unless it's absolutely necessary, is having 10-minute long parts nowadays. I like my parts to be between 13 to 25 minutes. Sweet spot of around 17, barring RPG videos like Final Fantasy, which I'd like to be around 25 to 35 minutes just because it helps me pace the LP better. More or less, all the items I'm not grabbing along the way, and even one trainer I'm not fighting, is just because since I can't have the Farfetch'd in my team anymore due to the fact I now have a full team to keep leveled, there are just trees I can't cut down. I'll probably come back for these off-screen at some point. I doubt there'll be any new Pokemon along the way, I'll tell you that for a fact. This, and you can even see, like, look at the disparity of levels here. Pokemon you're going to be encountering around these areas are going to be in their late teens to mid-20s. About the same as they were on Route 17 west of Celadon. This is what I meant by they want to compensate for you technically being able to go either direction to go to Fuchsia, but because of that, the levels in this part of the game stagnate. Even the dungeon we're going to be going into next part, the levels are around the same in there, barring like the 2 boss fights. This is a problem I think early Pokemon especially had, Gen 1 and 2. Johto had this a lot. Less so Kanto in that game in Gen 2, but even then Kanto had its own leveling problems. Gen 3, I think, was the first game to really hit a solid level curve throughout, because you're more railroaded in that game. Gen 4, I think, was about the same. Gen 5 onwards more or less perfected it, though, due to how they handle the storylines pathway just being extraordinarily linear. This is also one of the strange routes in that you encounter a lot of flying-type trainers, the bird keepers, but there's not many flying types in the game for them to use. There's the Doduo line, there's the Pidgey line, there's the Spearow line, and barring one-of-a-kind Pokemon, I think that might be it. That's not like a subtype like Charizard. I guess I could mention the thing that everyone who plays a Pokemon game on their channel mentions, and mention that, originally speaking, developmentally, there was going to be a bird-type Pokemon type that was going to be separate from flying, and then they realized, you know what, that's redundant, let's get rid of that. It is, and that's actually something worth mentioning now that I might think about it. FireRed and Leaf Green, while they still have their share of bugs, is a much more solidly programmed game than the original Gen 1. So if you're trying to do any major glitches, I think you have to go a bit more out of your way to do them this time around. Like missing no and all that jazz is entirely removed. There is a little bit of a reference to a rumor, though, that I think I'll be able to show off later on, regarding the area where the SS Ann took off from. I think I'll be able to show that off, unless you just need to trade over a Pokemon who knew Cut to avoid going the SS Ann to do that, which is possible, I just didn't do it. Now, this trainer has an interesting Pokemon. This is Electro. This is the evolution of Voltorb starting at level 30. Electric type, weak to ground. This thing doesn't have much in terms of main stats, but its big thing is its speed. Its speed is like top 10 fastest Pokemon. And I think it's still like top 5 to this day. I think it's tied with a few legendaries and megas. I know Ninjask and Speed Form Deoxys are faster than it, and I think one of the Ultra Beasts is as well. I'd hazard guess it Formosa out of all of them. This thing is absurdly fast. I think Gen 7 did change its speed, though. I think it got faster in Gen 7 onwards. This thing is an okay electric type. Not my favorite, but it could be useful just due to that speed stat alone, allowing you to get some quick hits in with a decent electric moveset. You could probably get, I think you might be able to teach Thunder to this thing at some point. Thunderbolt otherwise is all you might need. I just prefer Pikachu's line. And with that, we're back at the Fisher's house where we got the Super Rod. But I am going to head a bit further north first because I can grab this TM48 that we couldn't grab earlier. Also, since we can now fish, I can say that this route's Pokemon also include Tentacle if you surf, Horseys, Krabbies, Magikarps, I think Gyarados, Psyduck, and Slowpokes. Oh, that tea. It looks awfully tasty. Huh? I can have this drink? Gee, thanks. If you want to go to Saffron City, you can go on through. I'll share this tea with the other guards. So now, with all that route taken care of, we're finally in Saffron City, the central city in Kanto. We've been able to come here since we first got to Celadon as soon as we got the tea. I just wanted to get everything else done first because, as I believe I mentioned like last part, in terms of gym badge order, Fuchsia City's badge is before Saffron's badge. Plus, I didn't want to do two fairly large dungeons in a row. Because, hey, look who's here. With stuff under control, we can exploit Pokemon around the world. We'll be stinking rich! More importantly, though, there's this house. This is Mr. Psychic. Wait, don't say a word. You wanted this. He gives us TM29. That is Psychic. I think at this point in the series, it was still the most powerful Psychic-type move, if it's not to this day. Kadabra learns that naturally, but it could still be useful if you have, like, a Haunter on your team you want to get Psychic to something. But Team Rocket's blocking the gym. Don't get defiant or I'll have to hurt you. But they're not blocking this secondary gym, the Fighting Dojo. I think in lore this was originally the main gym for this city, but because Fighting-type Pokemon are weak to Psychic, it got completely nullified. Now what we have here is 5, technically not required, but required to get the reward here, fights against Fighting-type Pokemon in a row. If you have a Psychic type or a Flying type, this isn't going to be too much of a problem because they're very good against fighting types. I technically have a flying type in Blaze, but I like to keep my Pokemon around the same level for as long as possible, so I'm trying to get them all up to his level more or less to keep on going. You're going to see more or less every fighting type in the game here, too. You're going to see a couple of Machops and their evolution lines. I don't think you see a Machamp, though. The Mankeys, some Primapes. Makes you really realize, wow, this typing was limited back in Gen 1. Because fighting didn't get much to do in the original Gen 1, if I recall correctly. And from what I've heard about the Gen 1 meta, because obviously I wasn't really playing the games when that happened, the only purpose they had was fighting Tauros, and even then, not much point, because there were other ways around that. My experience with the Pokemon metagame is very minimal, because whenever a new game comes out, I'll maybe do a couple of matches with my friends while I beat that game's storyline, and if I go for the Pokedex completion of the region, like the Oras, bottom screen Dex, the Hoenn Dex essentially, or the Galar Dex, I'll do a couple more matches along the way, but I'm more about the storyline than anything, because that's what I'm here for. And the post-game stories, ever since they started doing those consistently, because those are fine enough, too, I guess. Although, now that I think about it, they kind of started doing that in Gen 2, did a minor thing with it in this game that we'll see later on. Gen 3 really didn't have one, did it? Gen 4 sort of did it with the Battle Frontier. Gen 5, I think, was the first one to start doing it more consistently. Then Gen 6 just added, like, the whole sub-story plot line with Looker. Either way, time for the boss of this dojo. He is gonna have 2 new Pokemon for us. Starting off, we're going to be fighting Hitmonlee. Pure fighting type, weak to flying and psychic because of that. This thing is very attack oriented. It's got great physical attack and decent, I think even, if not better, just a little bit worse special defense. However, my Kadabra special attack is a bit too high. On the flip side, we got Hitmonchan. Same typing, same weaknesses of flying and psychic, but its attack and special defense are a little weaker. Their big difference is that they focus in punching and kicking and punching attacks, respectively. And I think their abilities go alongside that. Just due to the pure higher stats, and I think a slightly better move pool, though, Hitmonlee is technically the better. And for beating all 5 of these trainers, you're actually given an option to add one of them to your team, or at least send them to your boxes. Indeed, I have lost, but I beseech you, do not take our emblem as your trophy. In return, I will give you a prized fighting Pokemon. Choose whichever one you like. Because of that, I'm choosing Hitmonlee. Plus, I'm more of a Bruce Lee fan than Jackie Chan fan, even though I think Jackie Chan's career got better than Bruce Lee's ever did in terms of, like, entertainment value of the movies, because I enjoy how silly they get. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 14, we're going to take care of Team Rocket here in Saffron before heading on to the gym. See you guys then.